apart from Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, the possibility of realizing the truths and power and ananda in the higher levels of consciousness is possible, but you will not be able to make it a reality in the lower floors, okay, in the body mind life. So if you think of yourself as a house, as I said, if you go to the third floor, fourth floor, okay, in the higher floors, the air is cleaner and everything, and the atmosphere also is far better. The traffic of the road is not there, the dust of the road is not there. So you will be able to experience the truths much better in the higher planes of consciousness. But as soon as you come down into the ground floor, it is not the same anymore. So you will not be able to reproduce that knowledge that you have got there, the truth that you have got there, you will not be able to carry it out here in the physical world. So it is better to start, Srindu is saying, with Karma Yoga. Everything that you do, think of the divine and offer it to him. Think of the divine and offer it to him. Then what happens is that the impurities of the ground floor also become removed, they get removed. So it is much better. All this is only if you want to do the integral yoga. If you don't want to do the integral yoga, fine, no problem at all. But integral yoga means he wants even perfection in the physical world. Okay? So that's what he is saying. Now we can start reading. So even for those whose first natural movement. Archana ji, good morning.
Good morning, Rangadhar.
Yeah. So we have not started yet. We are about to start now. I was just telling them the background of what this is. Okay. So Ramdo is insisting that apply the truths that you have understood, start making it a fact in the physical world. Then it will be much easier to live a divine life, but not live only in the higher planes of consciousness, and in the lower planes you are a very ordinary person. You are with all your imperfections. It's not going to be like that. If you start with Karma Yoga, it's much easier. Okay. Now, we start reading. Who will read today? Even for those who
Can I read?
Yes.
Okay. Even for those whose first natural movement is a consecration, a surrender, and a resultant entire transformation of the thinking mind and its knowledge, or a total consecration, surrender and transformation of the heart and its emotions, the consecration of works, is a needed element in that change. Otherwise, although they may find God in other life, they will not be able to fulfill the divine in life. Life for them will be a meaningless, undivine in consequence. Not for them the true victory that shall be the key to the riddle of our terrestrial existence.
1 minute, I want to interrupt you. There is a, yes, that's right. So now the humming is again coming. So from where is it coming?
The sound?
I think, yeah. Now it is not there.
Okay.
Again it is there.
I don't.
All of you
Because
have.
I'm using my earphones and my speaker, so I don't know. There's an auto wala on the road who's just come near the house, so maybe that is the sound.
I think we'll do one thing. Okay, now it is not there. Now it is good. Now it is okay.
Okay, I'll continue, but if the sound comes, then somebody else can read. Maybe I'll continue for the moment. Their love will not be the absolute love triumphant over self. Their knowledge will not be the total consciousness and the all embracing knowledge. It is possible indeed to begin with knowledge or Godward emotion solely or with both together and to leave works for the final movement of the yoga. But there is then this disadvantage that we may tend to live too exclusively within, subtilized in subjective experience, shut off in our isolated inner parts. There we may get incrusted in our spiritual seclusion and find it difficult later on to pour ourselves triumphantly outwards and apply to life our gains in the higher nature. When we turn to add this external kingdom also to our inner conquests, we shall find ourselves too much accustomed to an activity purely subjective and ineffective on the material plane. There will be an immense difficulty in transforming the outer life and the body. Or we shall find that our action does not correspond with the inner light. It still follows the old accustomed mistaken paths, still obeys the old normal imperfect influences. The truth within us continues to be separated by a painful gulf from the ignorant mechanism of our external nature. This is a frequent experience because in such a process the light and power come to be self-contained and unwilling to express themselves in life or to use the physical means prescribed for the earth and her processes. It is as if we were living in another, a larger and subtler world and had no divine hold, perhaps little hold of any kind upon the material and terrestrial existence.
Yeah. So what he's saying is very clear, but it will help us even more if we can think of an image. Okay. So I give you the image of the sea. Okay. Think of the sea and the depth. Okay. Now, if you are at the surface of the ocean and you plunge let us say 1 meter below and you look up, okay, you will see the light. Okay, the light is being able to go into that one. But if you go down 2 meters, you will see less of the light. If you go down 10 meters, you may not see any light. A dim light you may see up. But if you go down to 500 meters, you will not see any light above. Okay, so it becomes denser and denser and denser. So the physical world is a density, and it does not allow the higher lights to penetrate down there. This is the image that Shri is giving you in this para. Okay. So it becomes very difficult to get that light down right into the darkest portions of the physical world. So he is telling you that there is one way of doing it. Start the yoga with your body mind life itself. That means in the darker regions, keep on remembering divine and calling down. Keep on remembering. In this way, you make the density of the lower planes much less dense. So then individually, universally it remains dark. But individually, your substance at the physical mind, life, body become much lighter and the light can penetrate more easily. Otherwise, you will find that you are able to get it in the higher plane, the higher floors, as I said, but you can't get it down on your ground floor. This is what I'm explaining. Okay, so we go back to the. By the way, I would like to know who read just now. Please, I could not recognize the voice.
Nandini.
Who? Huh? Oh, Nandini.
Nandini.
Okay, right. Because, yeah. Now, in fact, Nandini, this is the first time you are reading, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, but you should continue you along with the others. Okay, you'll do that from now on. So I'm reading each sentence. Okay. So,
Okay.
even for those whose first natural movement is a consecration, a surrender, and a resultant entire transformation of the thinking mind and its knowledge, or a total consecration, surrender, and transformation of the heart and its emotions, the consecration of works is a needed element in that change. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, one sentence. So what he's saying is that when the Jnana Yogi is doing, he is not practicing Karma Yoga. He wants only his mind to become clear. And it does become clear after his practices are achieved. Okay. But he will not be able to make it a reality in the physical world. Up there, he will be very happy and he is happy with that. He will say, my body, mind, life does not matter because in any case, it is going to disappear. It is full of darkness. I can't do anything about it. Similarly, to a certain extent with the Bhakti Yoga also. But he is saying that even those who are doing Karma Yoga, it is not so easy. That's what he's pointing out. Okay. So he's saying it is better to, even for those whose first natural movement is a consecration, a surrender, and a resultant entire transformation of the thinking mind and mind knowledge, or a total consecration, surrender and transformation of the heart and its emotion. The consecration of works, whatever you are doing, consecration. The word consecration means offering it to the divine and thus making it holy, sacred. Okay, every action that you do can be made sacred. Okay. So that's interesting because I'll tell you the experience of someone, okay, who was wondering what exactly is the sacrifice and consecration. And immediately he told me that he had the experience of every action in the physical world can be made into a holy act. You are doing it for the divine and not for yourself. It may sound very strange, but this is what happened, okay? You are even flipping on the switch, even that can become a holy act. Because you, so this is the realization that he got. Okay, so this is the what Sri is saying. Better to start from the consecration of all your actions. It's not only eating and sleeping and going out of the house asking for protection, but everything, every action can be made. And that's why in the ashram we have the meditation and slight concentration in the beginning of any program, either in school or in the playground. And at the end also, a small thanksgiving. As Rambo says, begin anything with a little remembrance and an offering, and end also with a little bit of remember and thank. Okay. So that's what Rambo is saying. So I go to the next sentence. Otherwise, if you don't do that, although they may find God in other life. What does he mean by other life? The other life is the higher planes. Okay, the third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor. Okay, in the when your consciousness goes out of your body, mind, life and goes up, there you will see God. You may find God. They will not be able to fulfill the divine in life on the ground floor. Okay, the life is the ground floor. Life for them will be a meaningless, undivine inconsequence. Inconsequence without any importance. Okay, you can use the word. You can say it is of no consequence at all. Consequence usually means a result, but here it means importance. Okay, so it is no importance at all. And that's exactly what happens to the Jnana Yogis. Okay, so meaningless, undivine, inconsequent, the world remains, and therefore you reject it. Okay, they're not wrong, but it's very limited realization of God. Not for them. The true victory that shall be the key to the riddle of the terrestrial existence. The others are not interested in the terrestrial existence, but those integral yoga, terrestrial existence also. Why should you leave your body, your vital and your mind unpurified? Why not do that? Because according to Sri Aurobindo, not according to the others, the mind, although it's an obstruction, it has the right for knowledge. It has the right. Okay. Then your vital is always looking for enjoyment. Okay. And it has the right to enjoyment. But normally when the vital is impure, we are looking for the wrong type of enjoyment, which also gives suffering. So you purify the vital and you have the right enjoyment of everything. Normally in life we enjoy some things, but we don't like some things. Very violently we reject. But when this happens, the vital can enjoy everything. Even those things which seem unpleasant at that time become pleasant. And the body, what has got the body got the right of? It's got the right of good health, longevity, and even conquest of death finally. Because these are all impurities in the body. Okay? So good health, completely no disease at all, without disease in the body. So all these rights are there. And if these rights have to be fulfilled, start karma yoga. That's what Sri is saying. Okay? So that shall be the key to the riddle of the terrestrial existence. Their love will not be the absolute love triumphant over self. Okay? Triumphant over self. Their knowledge will not be the total consciousness and the all-embracing knowledge. So, even love and knowledge will become absolutely perfect if you start from the dedicating your actions to the divine. That's what he's saying. It is possible indeed to begin with knowledge or Godward emotion solely or with both together and to leave works for the final movement of the yoga, because everybody is not built in the same way. Some people may find it very difficult to remember God when you are playing say basketball. So he's saying that everybody's temperament is not like that. Okay? So you can start with the other things, but you will have difficulty. That's what he's explaining. But there is then this disadvantage that we may tend to live too exclusively within. He is using the word here within for love, but above for knowledge. Okay, subtilized. You don't pronounce the B, huh? Subtilized in subjective experience, shut off in our isolated inner parts. Here he is speaking of the inner parts, but he also will tell you about the upper parts also. There we may get incrusted in our spiritual seclusion and find it difficult later on to pour ourselves triumphantly outwards and apply to life our gains in the higher nature. We will not be able to execute what we have realized up and inside in the physical world. When we turn to add this external kingdom, the physical world, external kingdom, also to our inner conquests, we shall find ourselves too much accustomed to an activity purely subjective, not objective in the physical world, and ineffective on the material plane. Okay? There will be an immense difficulty in transforming the outer life and the body. Okay? Outer life, mind and vital. Or we shall find that our action does not correspond with the inner light. It will, these are all very famous statements, okay. um, I'll give you two quotes which are there all over the world, they say that, okay. The spirit is willing, but the nature is unwilling. So this is one example. And I see the truth, but I follow the verse. I see the good, but I follow the verse. These are all quotes from poets and all that, even from Europe. I see the good, but I follow the verse. I get unable to do. Okay, bring it down. This is what Sri. In fact, even Sri's own experience was like that. I think I told you. I'm repeating that sentence which he used for a letter in his letter to mother. He said, "The heavens we have conquered, but not yet the earth." The difficulty will be much less if you start by the consecrating your actions also, not only your thoughts and your love in the heart. Or we shall find that our action does not correspond with the inner light. Okay? It does not correspond. There can be a distortion. Even if the higher truths and the love that you have experienced can come down to the physical world, it gets distorted slightly. It does not correspond with the inner light. It still follows the old accustomed mistaken paths, still obeys the old normal imperfect influences. The truth within us continues to be separated by a painful gulf from the ignorant mechanism of our external nature. Note the word mechanism. Okay? Your prakriti, your body, mind, life is a machine. Okay? It's very difficult to change the working of a machine. It will work, but it will work only in the way it has been built. So, mechanism, okay, it's an ignorant, and also there is no knowledge, it can't adjust itself. The body mechanism is so very clear about the external nature. There's an internal nature which is Purusha, but the external nature is Prakriti, pure mechanical action. Okay. This is a frequent experience of this thing, because in such a process, the light and power come to be self-contained. It does not move out, okay? Self-contained, and unwilling to express themselves in life or to use the physical means prescribed for the earth and her processes. It is as if we were living in another, a larger and subtler world. Larger and subtler. Subtler, the words larger and subtler applies to both, inward and above, both. And had no divine hold, perhaps a little hold of any kind upon the material and terrestrial existence. So the burden of this para is, start with if you want to do the integral yoga, start with your actions. All your actions, whatever you are doing, it is easiest to start with food and sleep and slowly extend it to other things also. Even before studying or reading a book, remember God and offer your action to Him, and then start doing what you have to do. Okay. That's what He's saying. Shall we go to the next Small para, but still each must.
Shall I read?
Yes, why not?
Uh, but still each must follow his nature, and there are always difficulties that have to be accepted for some time if we are to pursue our natural path of yoga. Yoga is, after all, preliminary a change of the inner consciousness and nature, and if the balance of our parts in such that this must be done to the initial exclusiveness and the rest left for later handling, we must accept the apparent imperfection of the process. Yet, would the ideal working of an integral yoga be movement even from the beginning integral in its process and whole and many sided in its progressive? In any case, our present preoccupation is with the yoga, integral in its aim and complete movement, but starting from works and proceeding by works, all through at each step more and more moved by vivifying divine law and more illumined by a helping divine knowledge.
Yeah. A very small para, and he's telling you that he's saying that if you can't do karma yoga, if you can't consecrate, that doesn't mean to say you can't do yoga. You can do, of course. You start with either your mind or your heart. Okay, with knowledge. You want to knowledge, you start with that. But there will be difficulty afterwards. That's what he's saying. So each sentence I am reading, but still each must follow his nature. Okay, if your nature is more mental, then you will follow the Jnana Yoga path. If you are following if you are more loving, love is your the main characteristic of your nature, then you will do that. Okay, Bhakti Yoga. So, have still to be accepted, and for some time, if we are to pursue our natural path of yoga. Yoga is, after all, primarily a change of the inner consciousness in nature. Now, this is a very important sentence. He's saying you cannot change your outer without changing your inner. Okay? Sometimes we feel that the inner is perfect. No, it is not. It is that also the inner is the one that is carried from life to life. Okay, your intraconscient stores all that you have experienced in previous lives, and that has to be cleared up first. Okay, the mess that has been there from your previous lives, because you have started from ignorance, so there is bound to be mess and a mixture of all sorts of things. So you have to first clear the inner, and then only you can do the outer. That is the reason why Sri Aurobindo says in many other places that every attempt to bring perfection in the physical world will never succeed. You can go slightly better, you can make it better, but it will never be integral. Perfection in the physical world not possible unless you change your inner nature first, individually as well as universally, externally. So he's saying that. And he's saying yoga is, after all, primarily a change of the inner consciousness and nature. And if the balance of our parts is such that this must be done first with an initial exclusiveness and the rest left for later handling, we must accept the apparent imperfection of the process. Yet, it would be ideal working of an integral yoga. Note, he is stressing the integral part of an integral yoga must be, yet would the ideal working of an integral yoga be a movement even from the beginning, integral in its process and whole and many-sided in its progress. In any case, our present preoccupation is with a yoga integral in its aim. So I am speaking mainly for my integral yoga. He is saying very clearly, okay, a present preoccupation an integral in same and complete movement, but starting from works and proceeding by works, although at each step more and more moved by a vivifying divine love. Vivifying, making it living. To vivify is to give life to something. So the divine love should not remain abstract and only, it must find its way even in life. Okay, that's why it has to be made living. vivifying divine love, and more illumined by helping divine knowledge. So you will start with Karma Yoga, but also love also and knowledge both are important. That's what he's saying. And this whole section is about the Karma Yoga. Okay, so the next is obviously he'll come to the Gita. Okay. The Gita is a perfect exposition of the Karma Yoga. These are the long.
Shall I read?
Yes, Yasmin, do that. It's about a page.
The greatest gospel of spiritual works ever yet given to the race, the most perfect system of karma yoga known to man in the past, is to be found in the Bhagavad Gita. In that famous episode of the Mahabharata, the great basic lines of karma yoga are laid down for all time with an incomparable mastery and the infallible eye of an assured experience. It is true that the path alone, as the ancients saw it, is worked out fully. The perfect fulfillment, the highest secret, is hinted rather than developed. It is kept back as an unexpressed part of a supreme mystery. There are obvious reasons for this reticence, for the fulfillment is, in any case, a matter of a matter for experience, and no teaching can express it. It cannot be described in a way that can really be understood by a mind that has not the effulgent, transmuting experience. And for the soul that has passed the shining portals and stands in the blaze of the inner light, all mental and verbal description is as poor as it is superfluous, inadequate, and impertinent. All the divine consummations have perforce to be figured by us in the inapt and decisive terms of a language which was made to fit the normal experience of mental man. So expressed, they can be rightly understood only by those who already know and knowingly are able to give these poor external terms a changed, inner, and transfigured sense. As the Vedic rishis insisted in the beginning, the words of the supreme wisdom are expressive only to those who are already of the wise. The Gita is, its cryptic close may seem by its silence to stop short of that solution for which we are seeking. It pauses at the borders of the highest spiritual mind and does not cross them into the splendors of the supramental light. And yet, its secret of dynamic and not only static identity with the inner presence, its highest mystery of absolute surrender to the divine guide, Lord and inhabitant of our nature, is the central secret. This surrender is the indispensable means of the supramental change, and again, it is through the supramental change that the dynamic identity becomes possible.
Okay, that's a para. So, very high praise he is giving to the Bhagavad Gita, and rightly so. Okay? So, that's why I keep saying, okay, all of you, it is a very good experience to read the Gita, whether it be in Hindi or in English or in any translation. Of course, the best would be in Sanskrit, but it is worth reading. Okay. Some of you are already reading, I know, but if some of you are not reading, read it, the Gita. It's a marvelous experience. Now, I start reading.
Rangadhar,
Yeah, tell me.
which is the best translation of Bhagavad Gita in English?
I would tell you that it is best to read that what Anil Bharat has done, because he has taken from the essays on the Gita. According to me, that is the best. Okay, there are many. Sham Sundar has done, then Archanadi and Chinmaydi's father has done. There are many books. Okay. Then there is Annie Besant. Annie Besant has also done one. Annie Besant's book is very interesting because it has an index at the end. So it's very, very useful. Whatever word you want, okay, you go and look at the index and you know where that word is occurring. Suppose you want Purusha, then you go to the end of the book and you. So it's a very useful book, but the translation is all, translation, as you know, is very difficult to do from one language to another language. Okay, particularly they say Russian is very difficult to translate, but Russian literature is supposed to be fantastic. Similarly, Sanskrit. Sanskrit also is not easy to translate. Of course, this is there for all languages because each language has got its own flavor and its own characteristics, and therefore it's not easy to translate. But so since you asked Pallu, I think the best one would be that one. It's called The Message of the Gita by Anil Baran. He has used much of the text that Sri Aurobindo has used in the essays on the Gita, and wherever for grammar's sake he has to make a little change, he has done that. But mostly it's in Sri Aurobindo's words. Of course, Sri Aurobindo has not done a full translation of the Gita, like he has done for the Vedas, but much of it is there already in the essays on the Gita. Okay, so
Anil what? Anil?
Anil Baran.
Anil Baran.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Would
called.
it be available at Sabda?
Oh yes, absolutely. The Message of the Gita. Then there is also other books also are there. There is that Frenchman Galeran, who used to work with me in the press. Okay, he also is on the Gita. He was also very fond of it and he has done. But I would say that the best one is the. That's my opinion. Others may not agree, but it is the best. Other books are useful in many other ways. Okay, but this would be the best. Message of the Gita. It's called the Message of the Gita and it is there available in Sabda. Yes, certainly. Okay, so we come back to our text. The greatest gospel of spiritual works. The word gospel is a Christian word in English and it meant the 4 books of the Bible. But now the meaning has changed. It means any sacred text and absolute truth. They use the word also, the gospel truth. That means it is absolutely true. Okay, so they use the word gospel in that sense. Okay, of spiritual works. Yet, so here it is used in the sense of any sacred text, a sacred text. The greatest sacred text of spiritual works ever yet given to the race. Note, he's not saying in India only, he's saying the race. The most perfect system of Karma Yoga known to man in the past. Note the word, in the past. Because Sri Aurobindo is going to go beyond the Gita. In this para itself, we'll look at it. Is to be found in the Bhagavad Gita. In India, we have got many Gitas, okay? There is the Bhagavad Gita, there is the Guru Gita, there is the Ashtavakra Gita, there is Samhita Gita, there are many Gita. Gita means that which is sung, okay? Gita, that which is sung. But the Bhagavad Gita is the specific incident in the Mahabharata where all the secrets of spiritual life are given. In that famous episode of the Mahabharata, the great basic lines of Karma Yoga are laid down for all time. That's why all time, note, that's why the Hindu religion is called the Sanatana Dharma. It is true for all time. Most of the religions have certain things which are applicable to particular country or particular time. But here he is saying the known in the past is to the for all time. Okay, so where is it gone? In that famous episode of the Mahabharata, the great basic lines of Karma Yoga are laid down for all time with an incomparable mastery and the infallible eye of an assured experience. It's all springing from experience and knowledge. It is true. By the way, Vyasa, okay, he is a fantastic character, okay. He has written many things, not only the Mahabharata, but he has got even the this sutras, okay, the Brahma Sutras are part of the Advaita philosophy, and that is all attributed to Vyasa only. Okay, so Sriraumarama places his poetry in a very, very high plane. Okay, so in that famous episode of the Mahabharata, the great basic lines of Karma Yoga are laid down for all time with an incomparable mastery and the infallible eye of an assured experience. Infallible, that which cannot make a mistake. Infallible of an assured experience. It is true that the path alone, as the ancient saw it, is worked out fully. Okay? The perfect fulfillment, the highest secret, is hinted rather than developed. There you are. Okay. So he is now giving where the Bhagavad Gita is stopping, and we can go beyond that. That's what he's going to tell you, and we'll discuss that. Okay. It is kept back. The highest secret is kept back. It is kept back as an unexpressed part of a supreme mystery. The supreme mystery, he has in the Gita, the Rahasya Uttamam Rahasyam, the highest secret. There are obvious reasons for this reticence. Reticence, opposite of too verbose and too many words. Okay, reticence means minimum amount of words used. Okay, less talk. Okay, less
Reserve in speech.
Reserve in speech is perfect. Very good. That's it. Reserve in speech. For the fulfillment is in any case a matter of experience, and no teaching can express it. Okay, so we'll first discuss what is being unexpressed. Okay, the Gita tells you that you can live in the physical world like a lotus leaf in water without being affected by the impurities of the world. But Srivda wants something more. Why be only unaffected? Why don't you change the conditions also? So we have to go to the supramental world and change even the physical world. The supramental manifestation is the one that the Gita is not going to. But Srivda is saying is very obvious why. Because at each level and each time, so much can be achieved and nothing more than that. So at that time, the Gita is saying very obviously, Gita is not speaking about it because it is not the right time. Okay. I'll give you one example in the physical world also, and you'll see that the world conditions have to be ready for that. Okay. I'll give you two examples. One, think of Leonardo da Vinci in the 14th century during the Renaissance in Europe. He spoke about the flight of aeroplanes, which is heavier than air. He spoke about it. He even drew all sorts of plans and all that. But it could not be done. For 600 years, it could not be done. Why? The world conditions were not ready. So here also, the Gita is not speaking about the supermind because the world conditions are not ready. When the time comes, they will speak about it. That's why reticence. Okay, so that's what he's saying. He's justifying the Gita's silence on the matter. But you can go. Now the time is ripe and we can go beyond to the supramental. And he has done it. Sri Ramdas has done it, not only spoken about it. Okay. So this is what he's talking about. The perfection of the physical world itself and taking evolution to the next level. That's what the Gita does not speak about. There are obvious reasons for this reticence. For the fulfillment is in any case a matter of experience and no teaching can express it. In fact, the Gita itself says in one place, don't give a superior knowledge to one who is not fit for it, because it can be dangerous also for him. Okay. It's like they say, you know, bhais ke samne been bajana. Okay. If you play music to a bhais, he is not going to appreciate it. So, what's the use of giving a high knowledge to someone who is not fit yet? He has to be fit. It cannot be described in a way that can really be understood by a mind that has not the effulgent transmuting experience. Effulgent, shining forth, okay, and transmuting. He must have the power to put into practice what he is hearing. So, adhikara must be there. If it is not there, no point in giving him that knowledge. And for the soul that has passed the shining portals and stands in the blaze of the inner light, all mental and verbal description is as poor as it is superfluous, inadequate, and an impertinence. This also, what he's saying, someone who has the knowledge, you don't tell him to read the Gita and the Vedas, not necessary. He already has the knowledge, rather he can give it to you. There is a very interesting passage in the Gita itself also, where they give a very interesting image. Okay, he says that a man who is thirsty needs a well because the well will give him water. Okay, but when the well is the one that is giving you the necessary knowledge. Okay, now when there is a flood, the well is of no use. The water is everywhere. This is the image given in the Gita. So to one who is in a flood, he doesn't need a well. He doesn't need the Vedas. He doesn't need any spiritual text. He himself is the flooded with light and love and truth. So that is what is being said. It's an impertinence. By the way, the word impertinence, normally it can also mean a certain rudeness and something which is not. But here it refers to pertinent. Pertinent means apt, moot, that which is relevant. Okay, so it is irrelevant giving knowledge to someone who has already got the knowledge. That's what he's saying. That's why the Gita did not speak about it earlier. All divine consummations have perforce to be figured by us in the inept. I think one of you have inapt. Okay, both the words are there. I have inept, but some of you have inapt. That which is not apt, that which is not unfit, that which is futile, not useful, and deceptive terms of a language which was made to fit the normal experience of mental man. So expressed, they can be rightly understood only by those who already know, and knowing are able to give these poor external terms a changed, inner, transfigured sense. If you and I read higher mathematics, we understand nothing of it because we don't know anything about it. But if I know higher mathematics, I will be able to understand the text. Exactly in the same way, if I have the experience, spiritual experience, they will speak about it. That is the reason why the Vedas are so badly misunderstood. Because the images used in the Vedas are absolutely sometimes stunningly idiotic. I'll even use the word idiotic, okay? To a man who is living in the ordinary world, okay? When we used to read in the archives, some of these images, you say, what the hell? It's absolutely meaningless. But to one who understands the symbolism, it makes full sense. That's what is being said here. Okay? So expressed, they can be rightly understood only by those who already know, and knowing are able to give these poor external terms a changed inner and transfigured sense. As the Vedic rishis insisted in the beginning, the words of the supreme wisdom are expressive only to those who are already of the wise. Particularly the Vedas are like that. Okay? You'll understand nothing if you don't have the knowledge. The Gita at its cryptic close may seem by its silence to stop short of that solution for which we are seeking. Note that. Okay? What is the solution that we are seeking? The integral yoga is seeking? This supramentalization of the physical world. The Gita does not go that far. Okay? So it pauses at the borders of the highest spiritual mind. The highest spiritual mind is the overmind. So it stops up to that point, okay? And does not cross them into the splendors of the supramental light. We speak of 3 levels, na? We speak of level 1, which is the body-mind life, where your prakriti is dominant. Okay? The nature is playing its full role in the mechanical, in the physical world. That is level 1. Level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, right up to the overmind level. And level 3 is the supermind and above. Above, nobody has gone and nobody is described because it is, if you go there, you can go. The soul can go, but can't come back. So nobody has been able to describe it as yet. Okay. So these are the 3 levels. So that's what he's saying. The um, highest spiritual mind. Highest spiritual mind, very clearly, the overmind. Okay, and does not cross them into the splendors of the supramental life. And yet, its secret of dynamic and not only static identity with the inner presence, its highest mystery of an absolute surrender to the divine guide, okay, Lord and inhabitant of the nature. Now, he has used these huge words: divine guide, Lord and inhabitant of the nature. Okay, this is the Purushottama. This is the Ishvara or Purushottama, the one who is personal as well as impersonal. Okay, and that is found in the supramental. Is the central secret. So contact the divine guide, Lord and inhabitant of our nature is the central secret. Going up to that point, realize him. Okay. But live in the physical world. That's not to live outside the physical world, like the Jnana Yoga is doing. This surrender is the indispensable means of the supramental change. So you can do the supramental change only if you first finish the yoga as advised by the Gita. Because it's a step. If you don't do that, you can't go to the supramental. And again, it is through the supramental change that the dynamic identity becomes possible. What's the dynamic identity? That which is practically put into practice in the physical world. That's a dynamic identity with what? With God, with the highest level of the super, the guide, the identity with the not Purusha but Purushottama. Okay, that's what it is. Just 1 minute, I'm getting a phone call and just answer that. Yes, Vashini. Tell me.
Shivani and Anushka are not well.
Okay.
They
So,
have sent you a text also.
Asha, okay. So we won't have the class, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And I wish all of you a quick recovery. Subhashini, you are okay?
I'm alright.
All right, then I'll send my best wishes to the others also to get well as quick as possible. Okay. Au revoir.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Yeah, so this is a marvelous para where he has told you, and this also raises an interesting incident. Okay, Dilip Kumar Roy, who was one of Sri Aurobindo very close disciples, he was never really an ideal disciple, but anyway, he was, and he wrote to Sri Aurobindo, always challenging him and saying, "You are going even beyond what the Gita is going." So Sri Aurobindo says that evolution is always you are going beyond the past. Obviously, you have to go beyond the past, otherwise there can't be any evolution. So this is what Swami is very, very humbly pointing out that the Gita stops at a particular level. Now the evolution must proceed even further. So we have to go to the supramental level. So we stop here today. We got only 1 minute more. So
Can I ask you a question?
go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, if Vyasa wrote the Gita, then was Vyasa present at the time when all this happened, or how did he know?
Shabda is saying very clearly, it's a based in experience. Okay, very clearly. That should answer your question. Okay, he's saying assured experience. So very clearly, they've had the experience. But one thing you must understand. Okay, it doesn't mean to say that he has stationed his consciousness in the supermind. No, not that. But even in the lower planes, because as I told you earlier, that it's not like a staircase, it's more like a ramp. Okay, each one percolates into the other. There is like a rainbow color, they all percolate one into the other. Although there is a gradation, but the gradation is also there's an interpercolation. So even if you are at the lower levels of consciousness, you can get glimpses in time. And like Sri Aurobindo says in one letter, he says, I was in Parabrahman consciousness for several hours. But after that, you come down again to the lower levels. So certainly, Vyasa's experience was an assured experience. And incomparable mastery, as Sri Aurobindo says. But that doesn't mean to say that he achieved the supermind. Achieving the supermind, nobody has done as yet. But that's what.
Rangadhar,
Yeah, that should be our goal. Yes, tell me.
so from the time of Gita or the Mahabharata till
Yes.
now, it has taken such a long time to for the supramental to be seen or come down or something.
It was seen earlier, but now Sri Aurobindo is not satisfied with only seeing. He's saying we have to make it a reality, and that's what he has done. Huh? He has brought it down.
So the correct time is, it takes such a long time for it to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. But as it goes on, remember what happened when man came on the scene? He has taken millions and millions of years to come on the scene. Okay, but as evolution proceeds, it becomes faster and faster and faster. That's why he says that nature was very slow in her evolution for ages and ages. But when man has come on the scene, now the evolution can become not unconscious and mechanical like earlier, but now it can become conscious. Because man also is part of nature, and nature, he says in one interesting place, he says that nature has produced man so that her own progress can become faster. It's like you are now, nature has equipped herself with better instruments. You can put it that way.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, it is true. But there's so much more to be done. Okay. This supermind has been now.
Rangada, even I have a question.
Yes, tell me.
During the Vedic time, did
Ah.
the rishis also get a glimpse of the supramental world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because Sri Aurobindo says they has the supermind in life divine. He says that has the supermind been seen earlier? He says yes. There are enough words in the Gita to for the reference, and you can't mistake it. He says Rita Chit, okay? Then Satyam Tam Brihat. These are all words that describe the supermind. Okay. He speaks about that specifically in the lifetime. He says that has anything been seen earlier about the supermind? He says yes, we can find words in the Gita, the Vedas, where very clearly these words correspond. Truth, consciousness. Satyam, Ritam, Brihat.
Brihat.
Yeah. Okay.
Satyam Ritam Brihat is it in the Vedas or is it in the Upanishads?
Definitely in the Vedas it is there. Okay. These are the words used. And Upanishads also, after all, what are the Upanishads? They are the
culmination of the
culmination.
Explanation of Vedas.
That's
yes.
right. Advaita, the Vedanta. Vedasya Anta is Upanishads. Advaita is the Vedasya Anta. Vedanta. That's right. Not only in time, but also in idea. Yeah, tell me. Tell me.
I also have a question. Here we have it is written, and
Yeah.
yet it is secret of dynamic and not only static identity with the inner presence. It's
Yes.
highest mystery of absolute surrender to the divine guide. Highest mystery of absolute surrender to the divine guide is what exactly? I have not got it yet. Highest mystery is from last fourth line.
In the last fourth line from the bottom.
Yes.
From the
Okay. Got it. Yeah. The highest mystery of absolute surrender to the divine guide, Lord, and inhabitant nature is what the Gita wants you to do. Okay. The Gita wants you to do. As I told you, divine guide, Lord, inhabitant of our nature is very clearly the Purushottama of the Gita. Okay. The Purushottama of the Gita is the Ishvara of Sri Aurobindo, okay, who is there in the supermind, personal as well as impersonal. Okay. So it goes up to that point in the Gita, you can get the idea of the Purushottama, but it does not become a practical thing in the physical world. You are living in the physical world and you are not affected by its impurities, but there is no transformation of the physical world. Sridhar is talking of the transformation of the physical world outside the yogi, but not in the yogi itself. Okay. So your question, divine guide, Lord and inhabitant of earth, the highest mystery of absolute surrender, you are surrendering to the divine. Okay. This is the Gita's the aim of the Gita is this: absolute surrender to the highest divine guide. Because the highest mystery, the Srimad is using, translating into English, the Uttamam Rahasyam of the Gita. They use the word Uttamam Rahasyam. But Srimad wants to go even higher. So, highest mystery of absolute surrender is not Srimada's idea. Okay? It is the Gita. But the highest mystery of absolute surrender is Gita, and Srimada would say the highest mystery of absolute transformation, he will say. Okay? Even the physical world will get transformed. It's not only a surrender, but an execution of that perfection which is found in the higher levels in the physical world. So it's a good question, but that's exactly the difference between the Gita and Srimada's integral yoga. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Au revoir.
Have a nice day.
Bonjour,
Merci beaucoup.